Hey guys, Nishquick here, and welcome back to the EXP podcast. This is a podcast where we talk about all things gaming, our experiences with games, and what games we might be looking forward to, what we've played in the past, and what we're playing right now. And today, I have a very special guest. I am joined today by Mr. Jeff from Nintendo Vault, and Jeff has had some very big success on his channel as of late. He talks all things Nintendo discussions and some reviews and all that. So if you guys enjoy my kind of content, go give him a watch, subscribe, and like, because I feel like we might have some overlapping audience. Jeff, you want to talk a little bit about your channel and whatnot?
Hey everyone, it is Jeff from Nintendo Vault. Objectively, the most handsome Nintendo YouTuber on the platform, though you'll never know it. I do mostly Nintendo content. You will see me step out of the sphere a little bit when it comes to JRPGs. But other than that, it will mostly be Nintendo news, discussions, rants, things to get your brain going. So if you're interested in any and everything Nintendo, hey, stop on by. You might like the channel.
Yes, a lot of his content is a lot of fun, very engaging, very well done and well produced. So yeah, give him a watch, a subscribe, and go like his videos. Yeah, he recently had some videos really blow up recently, like Pokemon related, Metroid related. So yeah, give those a watch. And today we're here to talk about all things Nintendo Switch related, and we're gonna sprinkle in some JRPGs here and there because we have some experience with JRPGs, but a lot of our talk today is going to be related to the Nintendo Switch, its legacy, and what it means to us as hardcore Nintendo fans, I guess you can call us that. So yeah, Nintendo Switch is 6 years old now. It's a 6-year-old console, and we never experienced that from Nintendo hardware. You want to chat about these 6 long years a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy to see Nintendo come out of the gate and do as well as they're doing when no one had faith in Nintendo after the Wii U. The entire internet was against Nintendo, and I remember like yesterday, because I was all over this, looking at stuff and listening to people's opinions and what they had to say. And it was just, I mean, you can go back and do a simple YouTube search on the launch of the Nintendo Switch. It was just all bad. I actually did a video on this about how everybody was wrong, how the last thing you want to do is count out Nintendo and their powerful games and software and the brand. And it came out and did things you would, I mean, the impossible, really. To come off of a launch that bad, and then come into have to where we are today, where the Nintendo Switch is on the road and could quite possibly be the best-selling platform of all time, depending on how long they decide to manufacture it.
I think it's gonna.
It's insane to see. It's insane to see.
I think it's gonna hit it. I think it's gonna beat the PS2, but that's just me. Honestly, here's my thing. The Wii U really burnt me out when it came to Nintendo games and even gaming as a whole. I was very burnt out and very upset with the Wii U launch. I was thinking of even making a video on it when the eShop closes, or closer to the closure of the eShop, how the Wii U whole life cycle really disappointed me and sucked a lot of my enjoyment out of games, because I was just waiting and waiting and waiting for something big, something like Zelda, and it didn't come till the end, but that's besides the point. I was skeptical about Switch, but when I saw that first trailer, I was immediately intrigued. The marketing with the whole, the Joy-Cons, clicking together, and it shows Nintendo Switch with that click. I was like, I think they're really onto something here. I think they're really onto something with this marketing, with this whole hybrid gimmick. And if they have some of the biggest, highest quality Nintendo IPs present on the system, it is going to surpass so many other consoles that came before it. It is going to be up there with N64, GameCube, and SNES. Those are the pinnacle of Nintendo software, in my opinion. So kind of speaking along those lines, I want to hear about your history with Nintendo as a company and the hardware and the games. So I want to kind of hear that from you.
Yeah, that'd be actually. I'll segue right into that. I wanted to mention one more thing: is It's funny you were talking about the software on the Wii U, and I agree with you. And I think really what cemented for me that the Nintendo Switch was going to be a great console, without a doubt, I knew it was going to happen, was at that first presentation when we saw Mario Odyssey, Shin Megami Tensei 5, we saw Breath of the Wild, we saw Splatoon 2, we saw Fire Emblem, Xenoblade 2. There was no way after that, and seeing the release dates for those games, that I thought the Nintendo Switch was going to fail, because that first year was so incredible. I was like, oh, they've got this in the bag. They did what they needed to do, which was come with the software.
Yeah,
and that brings me right into the history. But go ahead, sorry.
No, speaking of that January presentation, we didn't even know everything that was coming then. Of course, we knew like Splatoon, Mario Kart, all that stuff. We saw a bit of Mario Odyssey and Breath of the Wild, and we saw a lot of Breath of the Wild actually. But like, we didn't hear about a whole lot about Mario Odyssey until the summertime. We also didn't know about Mario Rabbids Kingdom Battle till much later. And then we of course learned a whole bunch about Xenoblade 2 later, but we got a lot of teases as to like what's coming later in the Switch's life cycle. Even like No More Heroes 3, we heard about that in that presentation. So it's a real testament to how much Nintendo promised and how much they actually did deliver. It wasn't all talk, it was actually quality games coming out, quality good like first party and third party releases. But yeah, continue on with your history with Nintendo. I'm curious.
Yeah, they nailed it. So I've not always been a huge Nintendo fan like I am. I've always played Nintendo games. Like I started with the SNES, but I was really young, so I didn't really get attached to it. As the N64, I got really attached to when I got that for Christmas, and me and my twin brother opened up the package, and we played. It's definitely a different feeling when talking about the games, the greats that kind of defined and shaped how gaming is today. You know, the Zelda, the Super Mario 64, the Wave Race, the GoldenEye, the Diddy Kong Racing, the Banjo-Kazooies. But being able to experience that firsthand as a child really made that a special console to me, and it was definitely a console I never will forget. It's a special memory. But even after that, I got the GameCube, I got the Wii, I got the Wii U. Even after that, I wasn't a huge Nintendo fan. I played everything. I still have a PS4, I have an Xbox Series S, I have a Steam Deck, and I was really a huge PlayStation fan, a little bit more than even Nintendo back in the day. But I really think as I got older and as I've experienced more and more games, I think it was the Switch generation that really cemented me as a really hardcore Nintendo fan, because I just fell in love with the software, like back when I did with the N64. I've experienced all these different gaming consoles. I've experienced what gaming has to offer. I even played on PC for a good year and a half, 2 years. So I think when I go back and I look at all the experiences I've had with gaming as a sphere, Nintendo has been that one company that's never really let me down, except for, obviously the Wii U had its issues, but in terms of its software, in terms of making solid games, it's always been Nintendo for me. I just happened to transform into a fanboy about 5 years ago.
Aren't we all? But the thing is, I go back to this one sentiment that I have, and when I say this, it's no like I'm not saying this to be harsh to any other games outside of the Nintendo sphere, but I just wanted to say that Nintendo prioritizes making games fun. I think you kind of know what I mean by that.
Yeah, absolutely.
They don't prioritize how is this game gonna look, how is this game going to be perceived. They don't go into making a game saying we want this game to be like the next game of the year. We want this to be like the groundbreaking achievement or whatever. It just kind of happens because they're doing so much to make their games fun, and you can really tell that they're putting all that they can, all their innovation, all their creativity, all of their knowledge and expertise of game development. And just Nintendo is very creative when it comes to gameplay concepts, and that's what I love about them so much. You see it all the way back from the origins of Nintendo, like Mario, Zelda. Of course, they innovated and they wanted to be groundbreaking, but their core concept was, how can we make this game fun and enjoyable, and in the end just make it timeless? Because a lot of these older Nintendo games, like NES, you could say maybe not, but a lot of like Super Nintendo games and N64 games I would consider timeless classics, absolutely timeless classics. Like I want to know your thoughts on some of these games, but for me, like, I didn't grow up with the SNES, the N64, even really the GameCube. My first home console was a PS2, but my first Nintendo home console was a Wii, and my first Nintendo system was a DS. But I did go out of my way to get my Wii, like, get Wii points and like get on that virtual console and play some of these classic games. And from that, I garnered quite a interest and love towards games like Ocarina of Time, Link to the Past, Donkey Kong Country, Super Mario World, and that shaped my outlook and appreciation for games following playing those games. And now Ocarina of Time is my favorite video game of all time. Literally, I haven't looked at video games the same way after playing Ocarina of Time. And I want to know, like, of course you started with the N64, but did you also go back to SNES, or did you play some of the SNES catalog, and like, what do you think of some of these games?
Yeah, I've played most of some of the big hitters in the SNES catalog, and I appreciate them and like them, but I think the N64 will always kind of have that number one spot for me, mainly probably just because of nostalgia, things like that.
Oh yeah,
I just think that they did stuff that we still don't even really see to this day anymore. Like what Zelda did with music was groundbreaking. No video game had really done that with music. It was one of the first times where the music was integral to the game. It was one of the first time where I'm playing a game and I'm noticing the music, and the music is all without the game, and you can kind of feel what they were going for. And it was special, and you'll find yourself humming some of the ocarina sounds when you're not playing the game. And the same thing with GoldenEye, where I haven't really played an FPS, and I played it on my N64, and I think all of that was special. And one thing I wanted to say about that was it just goes to show how, on a technical level and just on a people level, how Nintendo approaches video games differently. I mean, we know that they don't really do crunch. We know that they promote innovation. They want to hear ideas, and they want to hear new ideas. We've heard stories of Miyamoto coming in and saying, well, why don't we try this? Or I don't like that. Other games are doing it, and things like that. And they really want to push the catalog and push the genres forward and push new things when they can. And then they've also found that balance to where they realize it's not always necessary to innovate on every little thing. That's why we get good sequels. And it really just shows where their priorities are, because if you look at something like Splatoon, there's just a really unique, innovative idea, and look, now it's one of Nintendo's pillars. They're one of the few that seems to, I want to be careful how I word it, because I don't want to say something crazy like prioritize money, which obviously they prioritize money, but they also seem to be one of the few publishers that aren't afraid of taking a chance on something new, on something they're not 100% sure is going to be a complete smash hit. They're one of the few companies willing to take that chance, and that's really what I appreciate about them. And obviously, the developers love being there. If you look at, I know I'm going on a little bit of a tangent, but if you look at the average lifespan of a developer at Nintendo, it's so much longer than it is over here in the West. Nintendo developers will stay with them for 20-25 years. So it's a testament on how Nintendo does business differently than we do here in the West.
Oh yeah, I definitely agree with you there. You see a lot of people still working at Nintendo who were like the founding fathers of gaming back in the day, like Yoshiaki Koizumi, Eiji Aonuma, Miyamoto, of course. Miyamoto doesn't work as much within game development, but like Koizumi and Aonuma were like around since like the N64 era, and it's so cool to still see them have a very important place within the company to this day. And yeah, I agree. Nintendo prioritizes innovation and really tries to break the boundaries with a lot of what they do. I do want to ask you though, what are some of your favorite Nintendo franchises? What are your favorite Nintendo IPs? Because I have a long list of my favorite Nintendo IPs, and it's a very interesting question to ask someone, because I always see Nintendo as the Disney of video games. They have these very big and recognizable IPs that anyone who has heard of video games will recognize. So what are some of your favorites?
Sure, I'll start with my top four. They're in no particular order except for the first one, which is the Xenoblade Chronicles franchise. It's not only my favorite Nintendo franchise, it's my favorite franchise of all time. Afterwards, we got Metroid. I'm actually a new Metroid fan. I started really getting into Metroid with Dread, Dread was my 2021 game of the year. I was not expecting how good that game was.
Absolutely phenomenal experience.
It was so good.
It's so good.
Whenever someone asks me, like someone who's not really into gaming, what's the perfect game? I'd say Metroid Dread. It's the perfect game to start on your gaming journey. I'll tell you why.
Interesting. I can kind of see why. I can kind of see why.
Next would be Smash. I've played Smash since it launched on the 64. I remember playing with my cousins. So, I've played that. I've even won a couple tournaments when I was overseas. It was really fun.
Nice.
And the last franchise that has to be on there is, of course, The Legend of Zelda. Yeah. And I think I started... My first Zelda was Ocarina of Time, but then I got, Story of... What is it? Age of Seasons?
Oracle of Seasons.
Yeah, there we go. Oracle of Seasons was, my second one for the Game Boy. So
cool.
After that, I played, every one going forward. So.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, that's a fantastic list of franchises. Especially, I'm very happy to hear that Metroid is on there. Metroid has garnered a lot of new fans since the release of Dread, and now with the mega success of Metroid Prime Remastered. I am a relatively new Metroid fan. I did play Prime 3 back when it, I don't remember when Prime 3 released, but I played it when I was in middle school. I played it and I was like, this is too hard, I can't play this, it's too difficult, I don't like shooters, whatever, right? And then I played Super Metroid when I heard the rumors about a 2D Metroid coming, and then I was very pleased to see that Dread was a real thing. And then I played Prime 1, I played Prime 2, I played Fusion, I played a lot of these games, and they're all amazing. So yeah, Metroid is on there, but if I had to rank my favorite Nintendo franchises, number 1 is The Legend of Zelda. It is my favorite video game franchise of all time, my favorite IP of anything, any movie, television show, game. Zelda's up there. It changed my life with Ocarina of Time. I said earlier that I didn't look at games the same way after Ocarina of Time. I could even say that I didn't look at media the same after Ocarina of Time because of, like you said, the music and the story was so well incorporated into the gameplay, and each played off each other. Each aspect of the game played off each other so well that it was one of the best multimedia experiences I've ever had at that point.
Can I interrupt you for 1 second?
Yes.
This just popped in my head and I wanted to ask you.
Yeah.
Playing through Ocarina of Time, one thing that I noticed was the lack of text and dialogues. Look how well they were able to weave that story.
Oh,
and
yeah.
with so little dialogue.
Yeah, the thing is, with games like Ocarina of Time, and I think Twilight Princess does this even better, is when they don't have voice acting, their dialogue in the text boxes are a million times more important than anything anyone will ever say in a dialogue talk from voice acting. You know what I mean? Because
absolutely,
yeah, they're really trying to get their message across with limited characters in a text box with limited time to get that across, and they understand that you're reading something, so they don't want to tire you out, except for when the owl is talking to you. The owl will, of course, the owl will give you an essay. He will tell you about his whole life story and why Z targeting is important and why you should go visit the princess, and then he'll tell you about something else and he'll say, you want to listen to that again? And you'll say yes because you're mashing the button.
Exactly. All of us have experienced that.
Yeah, it's amazing. But I do agree with you that Zelda, every single Legend of Zelda game, no matter how big or small, 2D, 3D, open world, linear, whatever, the storytelling in those games is very well done because, one, it doesn't hold your hand, but it also doesn't say, hey, go figure this out yourself. It's not like Metroid or Dark Souls where you have to figure it out with context clues and all of that.
Yeah.
It's very well done in how they foreshadow things and how they approach certain scenarios, and it's really, really well done, especially with how the music is incorporated into the narrative, the story, the gameplay experience, and all that. So Zelda will always be number 1. some of my favorite video games of all time are Legend of Zelda games, with Ocarina of Time and Majora's Mask being like my 2 favorite video games ever. Number 2, just shy of number 1, and the only reason that this series is not number 1 is because Zelda and I have that history. Like, I've been a fan for like almost 10-15 years now, so the only reason Xenoblade Chronicles is number 2 is because I've only been a Xenoblade fan for like 2 or 3 years now. But in terms of like the quality of the game, it is, I personally think, in my humble opinion, I think Xenoblade Chronicles is the most high quality, most unique, and most I don't know how to say it, high quality and most content rich new Nintendo IP. I say new Nintendo IP because, I mean, Xenoblade started in 2010, but it hasn't gotten the big push of popularity that it deserved until recently, with Xenoblade Definitive Edition and Xenoblade 3 and Xenoblade 2 and everything that's on the Switch. And we'll be talking about Xenoblade later, but I do want to say that,
Yay.
yeah, it is my favorite JRPG series of all time. I think many people should give it a shot. It is a very, very amazing, like uplifting, emotional, powerful, and impactful experience. Number 3 for me is Metroid. We talked about Metroid. Fantastic, amazing series. Number 4 is Fire Emblem, because Fire Emblem is the last kind of series that I ever thought I would enjoy, until one day I picked up Fire Emblem Awakening because my like parents got it for me as like a, hey, congrats, you finished your like first year of high school, here's a game as a present. And I was like, Fire Emblem Awakening, I'll give this a shot. I played a bit of it and I was absolutely demolished because I didn't know what I was doing. I got to like the halfway point in the story and all my units were dying. I was like, oh, whatever. And then one of my friends actually told me how to play the game and how to like reclass characters and how to properly, efficiently level up, how to pass things down to your child units and all that. And then immediately I spent like 200 more hours in that game, and now I'm a huge Fire Emblem fan. I've been playing it Engage and it's amazing. So yeah, that's my history with Nintendo. Yeah, let's see what else is here. Nintendo franchises. Yes, I do want to talk to you. I do want to talk about this now. I want to hear your opinion on Nintendo first-party titles versus Sony first-party titles, maybe Xbox first-party titles, and maybe even like third-party games as well, like coming from Square Enix, Capcom, From Software, etc. I want to hear your thoughts on this.
I will start this with I am biased, and I think that Nintendo first-party titles stand apart. I think they stand apart from every other console, third parties, everything, because, you know, one thing that I don't think Nintendo gets enough credit for, and we're talking about Nintendo and their first party in-house development teams here. So I don't want people, you know, to be thinking I'm talking about Game Freak or Pokemon or anything like that. We're talking about EPD, Monolith Soft, companies that work directly for and inside of Nintendo. They make, and I really want to get this point across actually, they make games that are solid without needing a day one patch a lot of the times. Nintendo has some of the best QA in the world, I think. And this isn't even talking about just the quality of their games in terms of like how fun the gameplay is, how beautiful the game looks, none of that. Just in terms of bugs, how many games come out today from any other developer, publisher, what have you, that need a huge day one patch, or that has tons of bugs, or has crunch and the developers have to go back and fix things? Almost every game comes out like that. But Nintendo games stand apart in the way that they have some of the best QA in the world. I didn't worry about how good Metroid Prime was going to run when I bought that game. I bought it digitally the second I could and beat it within like 2 to 3 days without any kind of patch. I bought Fire Emblem Engage when that game came out. I played what, like 7 chapters before the day one patch came out, which if you look at the patch notes, it didn't really fix much. It was mainly like adding DLC type stuff. So one thing I think that really needs to be talked about, if we're talking about competition between the platforms, is Nintendo's games are just solid. They're just solid. They come out well QA'd, they're well developed, Nintendo's in-house tools, engines, whatever it may be, are solid for their platforms, and they've been that way for a long time, and they don't get a lot of credit for that. So that's one thing I wanted to bring up.
They're masters of optimization.
Masters of it.
Yes, say what you want about how powerful or underpowered the Switch is. I care more if a game is optimized and if it is fun. And Nintendo does that. Nintendo does that with their, like what Jeff said, their first party games. I'm not talking about Pokemon. Pokemon is an embarrassment to me as a Switch fan. I don't use that as a way to say, hey, you should get a Nintendo Switch and see what it can do because of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. I feel embarrassed that Game Freak has developed a game like that. For people who aren't familiar with Switch games and whatnot, I tell them about games like Breath of the Wild, the Xenoblade Chronicles series, which is like one of the most amazing technical feats of achievement that Nintendo has done on the Nintendo Switch. So yeah, it's all about optimization and about making the game fun. Yeah,
I think Breath of the Wild is a great example here, because when that game launched, the biggest complaint was the frame drop in Cocorico. Is that how you say that? Forest.
Korok Forest.
Korok
yeah,
Forest.
Where you get the.
Sorry, I'll never get the names good. I play everything in Japanese. So. Anyway,
no worries.
The biggest issue that people had was that the frame dropped in that forest. That is a testament to how well QA'd that open, seamless, huge world was. That was the biggest bug that people were talking about and that people found. Nintendo is just different. I've said this before, but they have some of the best developers in the world in terms of just pure technical prowess. I don't know where they're finding these people, or I don't know if they're growing them in a lab, but they have some actual technical geniuses that work for Nintendo, because what they're able to do with the Nintendo Switch, with how underpowered it is, quote, it's amazing, because you can look at third-party developers now that struggle to have their games optimized for Unreal Engine 4 or Unreal Engine 5, yet Nintendo is doing it with a extremely underpowered engine in comparison.
Yeah, and so it's weird to see a lot of my friends play PC games and then they come back to me and say, oh, this game didn't run well, or this game was capped at 60 FPS and I'm playing it on like my 3080 or whatever, and I'm like, yeah, that's weird, because you would expect a game that's releasing day and date on PC and PS5 and Xbox Series X to run flawlessly, and it's well optimized, especially for PC, Like, you would expect it to run very well on PC, but you see very well optimized games on Switch instead, which are, it's nice to see. Like,
I think PC's a bit of the exception to the rule, because they have to target so much different hardware. But PS5 and Xbox, in my opinion, don't have an excuse. They're running on almost the same hardware. If you're going to develop a game with those SDKs, they should run on those systems flawlessly. There should never be a game that comes out especially first party, that has any issues. Like Days Gone, that should have never happened. How did it happen? You know what I mean? So
what was it like? I didn't have a PS4 during the PS4 life cycle, so I don't know what Days Gone was like at launch. Was it like?
It was terrible, buggy. I didn't even buy it. I just looked at all the reviews and all the talk about it, and it just, if you look at videos, it was just buggy. It was terrible. It wasn't well optimized in terms of frame rate, nothing. So I don't know how that happens on that side when Nintendo can do more with less, I guess.
Yeah, and that's also a Sony first party game, Days Gone, by Ben Studio. Yeah, but I do want to say that there's a lot of people with the misconception that Switch is not necessarily competing with Xbox and PlayStation. Yeah, you can say they're not directly competing with them. They don't have games like Call of Duty. They don't have the reason they're not directly competing and people perceive it that way is because they don't have I guess you can say high budget, high fidelity AAA experiences, meaning like something like God of War Ragnarok or Horizon Forbidden West or something like that, or maybe what's that game, Perfect Dark might look like or feel like, or Death Stranding. Those aren't on Switch, but I feel like the numbers tell an entirely different story. And I know you feel this way too. No matter how a game looks, art style or visual wise, the numbers will do the talking. Nintendo first party games sell better than any other first party competitor, better than Sony's, better than Microsoft's. And Microsoft, I've realized this, Microsoft doesn't even count their physical sale numbers anymore. They don't release those numbers. We only hear about it in the NPD because Microsoft now relies so heavily on Game Pass. So when it comes to which games are being played the most on the console hardware itself, which first party games are being played the most, it is on Nintendo Switch.
Yeah, I'm kind of on the position to where I think they're competing in all avenues, but I will submit to the software side, kind of, right? Yeah, they're not getting the big hitters, they're not getting the Maddens and the Call of Duties and the GTA, sure, but they are definitely competing in hardware with the PlayStation. In software, the PlayStation for smaller titles, indie titles, JRPGs,
100%.
titles that ports, things like that. I mean, a recent example I would think is like Persona 5 competing, I guess, with the Xbox, and Nier Automata, Monster Hunter Rise, things like that. So I think just the big titles known in the West that are super popular and played by everyone, like GTA, like I said, Madden's, the NBA's, the Call of Duty, sure, I'll go ahead and give that one. But I think they're competing pretty much everywhere else. And I don't even think it's really a question. I mean, all three make hardware. All the hardware is counted against each other. They all make software. We have the Famitsu lists that come out. We have the MPDs. We have the weekly sales, and they're all there together. And I always find it funny, and I always like to make this point so that people remember this and there's no misconception. Back when the Wii U was out, there was no question that Nintendo was definitely competing. There was no one saying that they weren't competing. But now that Nintendo's not on a failing system, all of a sudden, and was winning for 6 years straight, now obviously they're no longer competing. I think it's a little funny how that works.
I feel like people are just getting a little defensive when they see that their favorite console it's not necessarily not doing as good, but maybe they don't have as much strong feelings towards Nintendo. Maybe they don't want to accept the fact that it's happening. But I don't know. That's an entirely different kind of story and narrative there. But
yeah, I think it is competing. But hey, other people say it's not. So I can't. Everyone has their opinion, but I do think it's competing.
Yes, as a first-party machine that has first-party games that you can only play on Nintendo Switch, it is 100% competing. Because I was telling someone this near the end of the PS4 lifecycle, at the start of the PS5 lifecycle, I went to go see the highest selling first-party PS4 games. I think the number one was Spider-Man. I have to go back and check on this, but I think the Spider-Man.
I'm pretty sure you're right.
Spider-Man had sold. No, I'm talking in numbers here. I think Spider-Man had sold maybe around like 15 to 18 million, and it was the highest selling first-party PS4 video game. And then I thought to myself, I was like, at that time, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe was still around like 30 million. This was like back in 2020, and now it's like 20 plus million more. But I was like, the top 6 Nintendo Switch games have all outsold the highest selling PS4 game at that point. That was truly baffling to me. And one more thing, one more point of comparison is Elden Ring. I just want to give Elden Ring as an example. Elden Ring is a very big, massive, monumental success for From Software, and I'm very happy that they've sold 20 million copies of a Dark Souls-like game.
Absolutely deserved.
Yeah, absolutely deserved. It is one of the greatest games ever, one of the greatest open world games ever, and absolutely deserving of its Game of the Year title. But here's the thing. Elden Ring, it's great to see so many people getting into the Souls genre, but I do want to say that Elden Ring selling 20 million, that's also on multiple systems. It is a multi-platform game. It's being sold on PS4, PS5, Xbox One, Xbox Series, and PC. So five systems. Whereas I do firmly believe that Elden Ring will one day surpass the sales numbers of Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. But you cannot disagree with the fact that The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild selling 30 million units alone on one singular system that is a Nintendo Switch, and that system alone, that is bafflingly incredible. The Wii U numbers, I don't know, maybe like less than 5 million, I don't know. I'm not expecting much from the Wii U numbers, but 30 million alone on the Nintendo Switch version of the game is absolutely incredible. It's not on the PlayStation, it's not on the Xbox, it's not on PC, it's just on the Switch. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's a testament to the strength of their franchises. And it's something that is unique to Nintendo, really. It's really interesting to see stuff like that. People, it's the long phrase that people have been using, forever. Nintendo gamers buy the Nintendo consoles for Nintendo games, and nothing's been more true.
Yes, I 100% agree, because like I didn't get a Switch until a little later on into like the Switch's life cycle, because I was still in college. I didn't have the time or money to afford one yet. But when I got one, it was when Smash was coming out, and I was like, I have to join this hype now, because I've prolonged it for so long. I played Breath of the Wild on the Wii U. I now need to experience what Mario Odyssey, Smash Ultimate, all these games are about. And when I got onto it, it's the most, this is gonna sound weird, it's the most Nintendo console ever. You just feel, it just feels so much fun and very, like, wholesome playing the Switch. Like,
get exactly what you mean.
Yeah, and the form factor is incredible. I am one person who uses handheld mode quite a bit, and I basically play like 50-50 console and handheld. And you as a JRPG fan might also play like do this as well, but like playing JRPGs in bed, playing them like not docked, because like I just feel weird playing a JRPG in front of like my giant 27-inch monitor or my giant 75-inch 4K TV. I want to play a JRPG in bed. I want to play a JRPG on a road trip, or like just sitting on the couch or whatever. And the Switch is literally the perfect machine for my favorite genre of games, like JRPGs or Japanese RPGs. And it's so much fun to like just sit in bed, grind a few levels in Fire Emblem, or like grind a few levels in like whatever other game I'm playing. The only exception to that JRPG rule is if I'm playing Xenoblade, I need to play that on the big screen, because it's Xenoblade. Yeah,
I agree. I'm majority handheld, actually. I very rarely plug in my Switch. I just comfortability over everything nowadays. I'm an old man. I need to be comfortable when I'm playing, and the Switch did it for me. It did it for me.
Yes, I agree. It is a very comfortable system to play, and like it also retains that kind of it retains that GameCube essence where you can kind of like take it anywhere. Whenever I like go on road trips and stuff, or like visit friends in other cities, I always bring my Switch with me, because I'm like, they'll probably want to play Smash.
Yeah, it's so easy, right? It's so easy to carry around and bring with you.
Yeah, but before we move on, like, did you want to mention anything else about Switch and its placement within the console ecosystem today? I did want to hear your thoughts on like the technological and graphical gap between Xbox Series X, PlayStation 5, and Nintendo Switch. And do you think that's a detriment to the Switch, or what do you think about that?
I really think that this depends on the person. Again, I talked about where I started in gaming. I started back in the SNES. I played a majority in my childhood was like N64, GameCube. I'm used to games running below 30 frames per second. Like, the frame rate has never been a huge issue to me in gaming as a whole. And this is coming from somebody who built a PC in 2018. Like, I've been on both sides of that spectrum. I've seen and played games at above 60, and I've seen and played games below 30. It's just never been an issue for me, and I'm still in that kind of mindset where I think the only time that frame rate is a big thing for me is like FPS games and fighting games, really. And besides that, I'm not worried about it. A couple frame drops here and there, even if it gets really low, doesn't bother me because it's usually not very long that the frame drops last, and they're usually very they're under 30 by just a little bit to where you can barely notice them here and there. Now, if Switch games had games running at 14 and 15 frames per second, you'll probably hear me saying a different story, but dips between 30, not a big deal. Resolution, not a big deal. Like I said, I've played games for a long time. I'm used to all in any resolutions. Other people, I get it, right? I get it when they say they can only play games at this frame rate and games at this resolution. Completely get it. It's just never been a problem for me. What I need is a fun game. What I need is a game that is going to keep me interested and not bore me in 10 hours like a lot of the new stuff coming out does. Why do you think Elden Ring was such a breath of fresh air for everyone? Because it was different, because it was solid, because it was a escape from the formula we're used to. There was no hand holding. It sets you in this world and tells you to go. We need to go back to we need to stop letting Nvidia, AMD, and all these companies market to us about frame rates and resolutions and go back to gaming being about having fun games. Because look at what we've gotten. We've gotten these samey filling experiences. We've gotten games that hold your hand and tell you exactly what to do. It's just, to me, that should not be the priority. The gameplay, the experience, the atmosphere, the storytelling, the music, that should be the experience. Let the frame rate and let the resolution be one of the later things you look at, unless it really hinders the experience. And when I say that, I don't mean you get a couple frame drops. Digital Foundry ran an hour-long video, and for 45 seconds in the video, there was some frame drops. No, we need to get back to what really makes gaming special. That's my opinion. Sorry, I went on a little bit of a rant. I don't see it as a huge deal. I really don't.
No, that's totally fine. I very much agree with you there, because I see a lot of people shy away from Nintendo Switch games or the Nintendo Switch as a console in general because it doesn't live up to their standards of graphics and frame rate and just technical prowess and mastery.
One thing I wanted to add, I'm sorry for interrupting you, but I have to say this because this is like my go-to phrase that I've coined. I am not impressed with your 4K HD rock and tree textures, and I never will be. I just wanted to say that. It's just every screenshot you see from some of these PC games, and they're not super colorful. There's a lot of good-looking rocks and trees, and to me, it's like, come on, man, like let's focus on something else.
That's not as immersive to me as like other games that actually have well-designed worlds, if you know what I mean. But I'll get into that in a bit. But I've seen a lot of people shy away from the Switch as a console because it doesn't reach their standards of what a game should look and feel like. And I go back to my topic, or what I was saying earlier. What happened to when games were just fun? What happened to when games were fun before, like, they were pretty or whatever? Because most people I've seen and talked to and interacted with and like conversed with about games, their priority isn't graphics. Their priority isn't how many pixels are on screen. Their priority isn't how realistic a character looks, or how human someone looks, or how photorealistic this looks, or how many frame rate, or the frame rate counter, or whatever, how many frames are dipping, how many frames are maintaining, or any of that. It's about if the game is fun, if the gameplay is unique, engaging, and enthralling, and engaging. That's the big thing. Like, does the game keep you coming back to play because of its gameplay? And on top of that, is the story great? Is the world building good? Is there a driving force to keep you compelled to continue on with the game? And I feel like some games may not be I don't want to say they're not prioritizing these things, because maybe they are, but I do feel like Nintendo has a very good balance and very good grasp on how to hit on the very important things that make a game good, whereas also not skimping on like the technological side, because like we said before, they optimize for their Switch. They optimize for their hardware, which is the Nintendo Switch, and make everything look and feel as good as it can. Of course, it'll look better, it'll feel better, it'll run better with better hardware, but that's not what we have right now. We have to work with what we have, and what we have is still amazing.
Yeah, let's not forget that some of this, and I don't want to be that guy. A lot of it, okay, they have a point, right? On some titles, they definitely have a point. I don't want to say that they're completely wrong, but let's not forget that we have a lot of beautiful looking games on the Nintendo Switch. Metroid Prime is the prime, you see what I did there, example of a beautiful game running on the Nintendo Switch. Not a single person has come out and said that game has dropped a single frame. Nobody has come out and said that game is ugly. Astral Chain is another great example. That game is beautiful. Cyberpunk, futuristic setting, stable 30, very rarely drops. We have a ton of beautiful looking games, and a lot of that comes down to art direction. And the Switch is for what it is, it can run some beautiful technical games. Look at Xenoblade Chronicles 3. That game alone should convince you that this little tablet is a capable system, and it's capable of putting out some very graphical, very beautiful experiences.
I think Xenoblade 3 is the most technically masterful game made for the Nintendo Switch. Even more so than Breath of the Wild, even more so than Prime Remaster, you can argue, maybe not. I think Xenoblade is a technical masterpiece because it has massive worlds with massive landmarks, massive structures, but it also looks good. The areas look well lived in, very well inhabited, and they just look very full of life with the monsters, the people, and the vegetation, and the elevation, and the overall world design, because Monolith Soft is they're a masterful design team when it comes to designing worlds and areas and just landscapes. So that's one thing.
The draw distance in that game is ridiculous too.
It's amazing. But another thing is Xenoblade Chronicles 3, you can engage in combat, and you will have at least 7 people on screen at once, but that might go up to about 10, maybe 12 characters on screen at once with your party members as well as your enemies. And very rarely does it drop in frames. It might drop in frames, but it's not a significant dip that it slows down the game. And here's the thing. A lot of people are like, oh, I want 60 FPS in my game so I can time my attacks. I know exactly what's happening. Frame drops might hinder my kind of combat, right? Xenoblade is a real-time combat game. But the only timing-based thing I can think of as Xenoblade is art canceling. Art canceling, I think you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so art canceling in Xenoblade is very easy. You just use your art whenever your character auto attacks, right? But even at this 30 FPS that Xenoblade has, even with slight dips, I never miss an art cancel. I never miss an art cancel, no matter what class I'm fighting with. It's more along the lines of am I understanding their auto attack pattern, not oh, is the game running good enough so I can see my auto attack pattern or whatever. It's very silly. But on top of that, I did want to shout out Monolith Soft because they're some of the best open world designers ever. Because I play open world, I play open world games. I don't play too many, but I've experienced a few. I've experienced the Horizon games. The Horizon games are very, they're good games. I enjoyed them. I have to go back and complete Forbidden West, but there was a very big disconnect I had with the first game in Breath of the Wild, where the first game was very plain, very samey. The landscapes were very flat, not much kind of variety, and a lot of places looked the same. They looked the same, and there was a very big lack and real big lack of discovery in that game. There was a lack of you know how like a game in Breath of the Wild, you walk a couple meters and you find something new, and that new thing that you find leads you somewhere else, and it's kind of like one thing leads to another, leads to another, leads to another. Breath of the Wild is like that kind of game which sparks your imagination and your curiosity to explore this world because of the contents in that world, not necessarily how good or pretty or high fidelity the world looks. That's not what's immersing yourself in this game. What's immersing yourself in the game is what you can do and what you are discovering within the world, because Breath of the Wild has the most alive world I have ever seen in a video game because of the things you can search for and the things you can find and discover. Not only that, but the unique chemistry and physics engine within the game, where you can cut down trees, light grass on fire, fly using that grass, freeze water whenever you want. You can play with the laws of physics in that game in such a unique way that I've never seen any other open world game do. And of course, Xenoblade has a very nice look to its areas. A lot of its open world areas, like the Titans of Xenoblade 2 and the areas within Xenoblade Chronicles 3, are very, very well designed, and they're just iconic. Like, how did you feel entering the Kingdom of Araya for the first time in Xenoblade 2? That was an experience I'll never forget, honestly.
Before that, I did want to say, for anyone listening, if you really want a testament of how technical and how good and just how solid a game can be on the Switch, I think the best testament is actually Monster Hunter Rise.
Oh,
it's
yes,
an full action game where you can play with 4 people doing all types of crazy moves, fighting a big monster, and you will very rarely have a frame drop. I mean, you can do like Bayonetta level craziness in that game with 4 people online, and you'll really see that this thing is a formidable system.
Also, remember that crappy Nintendo Switch Online that everyone talks about? Well, yeah, there's not much lag within Monster Hunter from what I've heard. Well, I've played Monster Hunter Online once, and I didn't have a bad experience with it.
I got 150 hours in it, so let me tell you, it's great.
Yeah, it's a technically amazing achievement. It's one of the like best looking games I've ever seen Capcom make, and I'm saying that in comparison to the Switch. Like, I'm talking about for a Switch game, it looks amazing, I have to say. Of course, it doesn't look like Monster Hunter World or any of that, but
right.
For a Switch game, it is one of the best looking Switch games, because like I made a video kind of criticizing the state of Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, and I use Monster Hunter Rise as a big example of that. Why I'm very
perfect.
As
for stepping into the Kingdom of Araya, mind you, Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was my first Xenoblade.
Yeah.
When I stepped in there, it blew my mind because I really wasn't expecting it. I didn't know what to expect playing the game, right? When I got it, it was a whim purchase. I purchased it on a whim. I was really thirsty for a JRPG at the time. And when I got there and I saw the beautiful trees and the music and the like you said, the elevation, the Z indexed in these games to where you can go up huge cliffs, you can jump all the way down into watery ravines where there's a bunch of monsters waiting to kill you for no reason. The beautiful city. It was just, I was so surprised that this was running on the Switch, because I think the reference that I had for a big game before Xenoblade Chronicles 2 was Breath of the Wild. And Breath of the Wild was beautiful and it did have elevation, but I think it's hard to compare them. I think Xenoblade just does more. I think Xenoblade does more, and not in terms of chemistry, not in terms of physics, but in terms of how it looks. I think it does more. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, I think a better word than elevation is verticality, and Xenoblade is no stranger to verticality. I have yet to continue Xenoblade Chronicles X, but Xenoblade Chronicles X is literally verticality, the video game. Like, of course, Breath of the Wild, verticality, yes, you have your paraglider, you can glide anywhere, you can climb any cliff in the open world. Xenoblade Chronicles X has more of a freedom to that, in the sense that you can get inside of a mech, which is called a skell, and you can fly literally anywhere on the map. You can get inside of a skell in your home base, fly all the way to the other side of the map, into like the volcanic lava region and get demolished, but you will have flown there and haven't had a good time going all the way across the entire planet. So yeah, Monolith Soft, they also helped a lot with the world design of Breath of the Wild.
Yep.
They are masters in open world design and open world just engineering of these landscapes. And the only other video game that has come as close to the level of Xenoblade and Zelda in terms of making such a well lived in open world landscape, in my opinion, is Elden Ring. And that is a testament to how much Zelda Breath of the Wild has impacted video games going forward.
I agree.
Yeah.
And just to put to rest the resolution and frame rate thing, I think that this was an issue closer to when the Switch came out and developers were still playing with the system and learning about it. It's been 6 years now. We're not really seeing games that are having a whole lot of problems come out, besides Pokemon, but we could talk about that a little later.
And Pokemon is not a in-house Nintendo game. Nintendo themselves are not very happy with the state of Pokemon, as we can see from PR heads and how Nintendo is putting out like statements saying we are very aware of what's going on, where we want to provide the best experience possible. I'm very upset with Game Freak. I'm very upset with how this has happened. Me personally, having been a Pokemon fan for a very long time now, I'm very upset with it, and I'm not buying the games until some serious substantial change is made.
I think we both have videos on the current state of Pokemon, actually, right?
Yeah, because it is very non-indicative of the quality and standards of Nintendo Switch. And I can understand people playing the game and enjoying it for what it is, and being aware of the frame rates and resolution and all that, because I know that you got the game and you enjoyed it, but you're aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I'm also a super casual Pokemon fan. I have growing up, it was super important to me, but after Ruby and Sapphire, I kind of grew out of them, so now I just buy them every so often. I loved Scarlet, by the way.
Oh yeah, I have also seen the other side of people who almost don't really accept that it exists, in the sense that they might say that, the game doesn't have any performance issues, or I didn't experience any performance issues, but their point of comparison may not be exactly where it needs to be, or they may not be understanding the real gravity of the situation as much. So,
I agree. Like, some people, like, even I had that experience where I didn't experience much craziness. All I really had during my playthrough was like some frame drops. I didn't have any of the other craziness, but you can see it, right? There are people that release tons of content of their issues and their bugs. You can't escape it. So there was a lot of argument for Game Freak at the time that I just really didn't understand. And I think there's some times where you have to emotionally detach yourself from something that you really love so that you can get something better in the future. You have to have some form of criticism, I think. And I get it, right? Don't get me wrong. Like, my twin brother, he loves Pokemon. He has 800 hours plus in every single game that comes out. He plays them online, he plays them competitively, and even he will sometimes at least say, you know what, they do need to do better in this area and that area and this area, because I want more people to crush online. You know what I mean? So I agree with you there. It's a little weird how I saw a lot of deflection, and I don't want to say the big C word, cope, but there was a little bit of it out there. I'm not gonna lie.
I sort of agree, and it was very weird, because I will tell you guys right now, if Xenoblade Chronicles 4 or the game after Zelda Tears of the Kingdom doesn't perform well in terms of like maintaining a 30 FPS or like any of that, or has like very big glitches and game-breaking bugs and all that, I'll be very upset. I'll be very upset as a very big fan of Zelda and Xenoblade or whatever. Maybe I might get the game because like I'm very excited for it, or it might like it is like EPD3 and Monolith Soft's like first downfall game or whatever you want to call it. But this isn't Pokemon's first time doing this, so
I agree. I always say, even in my videos, that there their benefit of the doubt and having confidence in a company, they're allowed a mistake or two. I completely think if a game developer has delivered over and over again, it's completely fine to forgive them for a misstep here and there. It just can't become, a routine.
Oh yeah, 100%. And before we close out on our topic of Nintendo Switch as a whole, I did want to ask you, especially with all the rumors bubbling about and all the rumors and rumblings and all that, what are your hopes for the next console from Nintendo? Whether it is a Switch Pro, a Switch 2, next generation, mid-gen refresh, what do you think's happening? What do you think's coming, and when do you think it's coming?
First of all, to stay consistent, I want to let it be known that I'm one of the few who are fine even if the current Switch was out for another 10 years. That's how much I love this system. As for the next or whatever comes next, I'm not completely sold on it being a Switch 2 yet. I think we need a little bit more information. It could be a Switch 2. I would love for it to be a Switch 2. I want it to be a Switch 2. But looking at Nintendo's history, I don't want to jump off a ledge and say it's a Switch 2. I've reported on leaks, but I also made it clear that I'm not 100% convinced on these leaks. We've had leaks for a new Nintendo system since 2017, since the device came out. We've had leaks for a new Nintendo system before the device came out. So I like to be kind of careful there. But personally, I would want to have just a revision of the Switch, more powerful, can put out better frame rates, get a new CPU, get some more RAM in there. I would love that, but I'm not convinced because Nintendo just don't do that for their mainline systems. They do it for like the DS and they do it for like the Game Boy, but will Nintendo consider this device like they consider a DS, like they consider a Game Boy? I don't know. It's so hard to say. If you were to ask me this question in 2019, I would have 100% said we're getting a Switch Pro. That's how many rumors we've had since this device has come out for a Switch Pro. We've had it every single year. We've had rumors of, well, the rumors have evolved from Switch Pro to Switch 2 now, but you know what I'm saying. It's so hard to figure out what Nintendo's doing because they're the only company that does really weird things. Like, I would not be surprised for a minute if the next system, and I talked about this a little bit in a rambling video, I would not be surprised if they came out with a traditional console and a handheld and separated it again. Would not be surprised at all. Let me explain why. We look at the success of the Nintendo Switch, and it is a successful console for sure. Don't get me wrong there. But the Wii was not that long ago. The Wii was 100+ million seller. The Wii was also supplemented by the DS, which is 100+ million seller, 150 million plus seller. Are we completely and totally sure, without a doubt, that Nintendo is not just going to go back to that, where they had, 250+ million units of hardware out versus their 150+ that they may have with the Switch? Who knows? Who knows what they're going to do in the future? But guess what? I will be there every step of the way, reporting on leaks and rumors because they do well.
I don't remember. It might have been your video where you said this, but I really like where Nintendo is at right now in the sense that they have both their handheld and home console division kind of working under the same umbrella. Did you talk about this in one of your videos?
Yeah, I did. I talked about it's better, in my opinion.
Yeah.
It's a lot better for them to be
more consistency, honestly,
yeah,
with the quality of games. So I would be a little kind of bummed out if they kind of separate console and and handheld again.
Oh, Nish, quick! I'd be so pissed. You have no idea.
Yeah, but like you said, they're very unpredictable. You can never predict this company, what they will do, what they will provide, and all that. Like,
well, like I said,
it's
like
weird.
If you look at it in the business perspective, if you take away kind of what we think as gamers makes sense, and you think about it in a business perspective, in what's going to return the most profits, it makes sense for them to separate handheld and traditional. It just does because it worked so flawlessly with the Wii. I wouldn't be surprised if it happened. I'd be pissed, but I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see what happens. We shall see. You know what I think is going to happen? And I feel like this is going to happen so that Nintendo kind of squeezes out every little life they have in the Switch left. You know, what they're going to do is they're going to have, I think it's going to be a mid-gen refresh. And here's why. Switch is at maybe 120, 130-ish million, right? It's gonna hit the 150 mark. But the sales are slowing down now. I don't think Zelda can save it. I don't think any other big thing can save it right now. What I think that they really would want to do is release a new model, which is higher specs, more RAM, maybe DLSS capable, better GPU or something, better screen for handheld, consistent 60 FPS, maybe dynamic 4K output, something like that. But here's the thing. It'll be a mid-gen refresh, but on top of that, it will be still within the Nintendo Switch family of systems, that umbrella. Because, hold on a second. They have this whole thing with the Nintendo Switch family of systems. Within that family, you have the normal Nintendo Switch, the V2 Nintendo Switch you can have now. You have the Nintendo Switch Lite. You have the Nintendo Switch OLED model. And on top of that, maybe they'll add the Nintendo Switch Plus or the Nintendo Switch Pro or whatever. That mid-gen refresh within that family of the Nintendo Switch, which will count onto the sales of the original Nintendo Switch, just like the new 3DS did. It'll boost it past 150 million into the stratosphere of PlayStation 2. That's what I think.
Yeah, those are the two big theories that people are leaning to. Either like a new Switch that counts as the same family, or a brand new Switch that they like call the Switch 2 or whatever they may call. Those are the two leading theories. And again, we've had the leaks of people come out and say like even what the chip's going to be and things like that. But I feel like I have to mention that sounds like it makes too much sense and that it would do too well. Therefore, Nintendo's not going to do it, and they're going to go to something ridiculous. I want exactly what you're saying. That's all I want. Just come out with more powerful hardware. But Nintendo's just known to not care and just do what they want. So it's very exciting to see what's going to come next. I still lean towards exactly what you said, pretty much. Either that or just a new Switch generation. Yeah. That's where I'm leaning towards. But like I said, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. When do you think we're going to see this, though? When do you think we'll see it?
Next year, I think.
Yeah. What do you think is happening in the second half of this year, with it being so empty?
Probably a couple more announcements. Like we'll probably get more Prime, Metroid Prime. We'll probably get another two big announcements. A couple of those. Yeah. I don't know what they would be. Really, maybe I don't know. Maybe they'll drop F-Zero out of nowhere. Who knows? I couldn't tell you, but I think we'll probably definitely get more Metroid. We'll probably see Metroid Prime 4, maybe. Hopefully,
I think we'll
at
see
least
Prime
a trailer
4.
or something.
I really hope we see Prime 4.
We may see. If we don't get it, we may at least see the next Mario 3D.
Yeah.
Or at least 2D. I think we'll probably see that. But I don't know what they could be doing for the next half of the year. Half of me wants to say that they're gearing up to show us the new console, but who knows?
We'll see. That second half of 2023 is unusually empty, and at this point in a Switch year, we usually kind of have an idea of what's coming out in the tail end of the year. So it's a little telling that we know absolutely nothing of what's happening.
You want me to tell you what we're not going to get, but what I want?
What?
I want a new Animal Crossing. That sounds crazy, right?
Yeah, I don't think it's happening.
It's not, but I want one.
Yeah. Did you play New Horizons back in the hype?
Yes, that was my first big, well, not my first, but it was like the first time I spent so much time in it, yeah.
Oh, interesting. I've never been much of an Animal Crossing person. I always say the Nintendo IPs that I'm not huge on, which I don't really like, which, I mean, I don't hate them, but they're just not for me, are Animal Crossing, Splatoon, and Pikmin. I am most interested to maybe get into Splatoon, because the whole vibe and the whole excitement of the game is very cool, and the music is awesome in Splatoon. I
tell you,
awesome.
Man, I was on your page. Animal Crossing was not my thing. I got lucky, and I was a part of a huge community. Mm-hmm. So when the game launched, when I was a part of that community, we all played together. It was the most fun I ever had. It was the most fun I had. It was so much fun. Like, I was addicted for 100 hours visiting my friends' islands. They would visit mine. We would trade. It was just so much fun.
That's cool.
I kind of got lucky there. If I didn't have that, I probably wouldn't enjoy the game.
Yeah, my pandemic games were Fire Emblem Three Houses and Xenoblade Chronicles Definitive Edition. which I also sank hundreds of hours into. So those are fun in their own way.
Super good games. Yep.
Oh yeah. But before we close out on this topic about Nintendo and Nintendo Switch, do you have any final statements about the Switch as a whole? And let's see, what did we talk about? Favorite IPs, favorite franchises, why we think the Switch is successful, comparison between PS5 and Series X, and competition and all that. Any last minute thoughts?
Yeah, sure. For anyone who hasn't jumped off that ledge yet and tried it out, listen, go get a Switch Lite. You know, get one secondhand. Try out these games, because it's really what makes this console special is the software for these systems. There's a reason why these games sell so well. It's not just because they have the Nintendo logo on them. It's because they're really good games. And I think if you consider yourself a gamer, you're really missing out if you don't give some of these games a try. And if you don't like it, you can come over to my channel and thumbs down all my videos. But I do think you'll like the Nintendo Switch if you give it a try. Take it outside, take it on a plane, take it on a train, wherever you go. You'll have some really good games and some really good experiences that you won't experience on other consoles. Yes,
I agree. And a lot of people bring it, like, they always bring it back to maybe oh, it's not for me, I prefer these kinds of games, in terms of like preference and opinion and all that. But at least give it a shot. That's my thing. At least give it a shot. At least see how you enjoy it, because my whole philosophy is Nintendo games are all about fun, but the thing is there is always going to be a game on Nintendo Switch for someone, any kind of gamer there is in this world. There is a game for you on Nintendo Switch, whether it's first party, whether it's third party, whether it's second party like Pokemon or whatever. There is a game for you, and there is a game for you to enjoy on this amazing console. I might even consider it my favorite video game console of all time. It is definitely my favorite video game console from what I personally own. In terms of like software library, you can maybe say something like SNES, N64, but honestly, Switch is up there for me as well in terms of software library. We're talking about its stellar library of first-party and third-party games, which sell very well and are very, very successful. So definitely give the Nintendo Switch a shot. So yeah, I'm going to close out part 1 here. This is part 1 on our 2-part talk about Nintendo and JRPGs. Join us for the next part on some discussions on our favorite JRPGs and what we think about JRPGs as a whole. This is Nishquick signing off. Have a great day. And this is Jeff signing off. Go check out his channel. Go subscribe to him. Give his videos a like and a watch and all that. Yeah.
If you don't, I'll find you.
Yeah. We shall see you in part 2 later.